Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Hope all is well. Today we're going to be speaking about David Melech and about the Moshiach, the connection between these two holy people. So David Melech is the second king of Israel after Saul, but the dynasty is David's dynasty, meaning the Davidic dynasty is the dynasty that is still established as the kingdom of Israel, Baruch Hashem. That is the meaning that even though now we don't have a revelation of the king of Israel, but in every generation there's a person who is the descendant of King David, who has the general neshama, the spark of the neshama of Moshiach, and if that generation is meritorious, this person will be crowned as king and will be the Moshiach. So in every generation there is this person, and that person in every generation is from the Davidic dynasty, and ultimately the Moshiach himself will be from King David's descendants, through Solomon, through his son Solomon. So to understand this better, the depth of this and what this entails and why this is the case, we have to understand a little bit about David Melech. So David Melech was taught, he was actually, so this goes back to when Shaul was king. The Jewish people wanted a king. They begged Shmuel Hanavi to appoint them a king. And Shaul was the first king to be chosen. Many events occurred, and in the end, the kingdom was taken away from Shaul. Hashem decided to take the kingdom away from Shaul and to give it to David Melech. So how did this unfold? Shmuel Hanavi, a very extremely high-level prophet, Shmuel Hanavi. He has 2 books in the Tanakh named after him, as you may hear in English, Samuel 1, Samuel 2, in Hebrew, Shmuel Aleph, Shmuel Beis. And Shmuel Hanavi was the leader who was the one looking to find a king to appoint. So what happened? So Shmuel Hanavi began looking, and he knew that one of Jesse, in Hebrew known as Ishai, one of Ishai's sons will be the king. But he had to figure out which one of Ishai's kings will be king. So he went to meet with all of them. And there were 7 of the brothers, David being the youngest. So when Shmuel Hanavi went to meet Ishai, he told him, listen, by the way, Ishai was an extremely holy man. He's one of 4 men mentioned in the Gemara to die without sin, to pass away without any sins. This is Ishai, the father of King David. So Shmuel Hanavi went to visit Ishai, and he knew that one of his sons were king, but he didn't know which one. So he asked him if he can meet with all his sons. So they introduced Shmuel Hanavi to all the sons of Ishai, except for David. They told David Melech to stay and to look after the sheep. So at first, when Shmuel Hanavi saw the first son of Ishai, he was an extremely tall and strong man. And we know that Shaul was the tallest man in the nation. And so when he saw Ishai's oldest son, who was extremely tall as well, he thought that on the spot, this is the king, and he was ready to anoint him as king. But what happened? He heard a voice from heaven saying, this is not the king. Then he went to the next brother, this is not the king, and so on and so forth, until he met with the first 6, and the voice said they were all not king, the heavenly voice. So then what happened? So Shmuel Hanavi asks Ishai, the father of King David, says, do you have any other sons? He says, yes, my youngest son David Melech is tending the flock. So Shmuel says to him, he is the king. And this was, of course, still during the time that Shaul was reigning, but Shmuel appointed David as the next king. And there was conflicts that arose, and eventually Shaul passed away, and David took over the leadership of Israel. And just already right now we see what kind of person David Melech is by his humility. He's the youngest of 7 brothers. To be the youngest of 7 brothers means that you and especially that he was tending the flock and he didn't get to meet the prophets. He was a very humble person, and he received a lot of difficult challenges throughout his life. It's known that David Melech had hard challenges growing up. And, of course, his brothers, he wasn't even permitted to come meet the prophet Shmuel. But he was the one ultimately to be chosen to be king. And interestingly, we learn in Chassidus that all 7th are cherished. There's a special blessing to number 7. As you know, Shabbos is 7th, the 7th year, the Jubilee, the Shemitah year, the 7th sabbatical year. It's all about 7. 7 is a very special number. You see, David Melech is the 7th of 7 sons, and he was the one to be king. So David Melech eventually took over, and he started off by being the king of Hebron, and eventually he there's so many events that occurred, miraculous, incredible stories and events that occurred throughout the life of King David. And that could, that's, in this video, we won't be able to cover all that. But what we will be able to talk about is some of the beautiful things that we learned from David HaMelech. David HaMelech went through a tremendously difficult life. He lost many of his children, and he faced many different challenges. But David HaMelech was a righteous man, and his heart was connected to Hashem in unbelievable ways. They say about David HaMelech, our sages teach us, we learn in the scriptures, that David HaMelech was a soul that was unaffected by the sin of Adam. Beautiful. So what does this mean? It means that David HaMelech experienced reality, his conscious reality, in a way similar to prior the sin of the tree of knowledge. He experiences such a tremendous revelation of God, David HaMelech, that he experiences it in a way that is, he's unaffected by the sin of Adam. And he was extremely humble, David HaMelech, that he didn't even insist on meeting the prophet, and he let his older brothers go meet the prophet, and he was the one to be king. And I'm sure he recognized he was special, but he was so humble nonetheless. And he was always merciful with his enemies. He never wanted to take revenge on Saul when Saul wanted to kill him, and he was extremely merciful on the people. And even on his sons, one of his sons who tried to rise up against him, he had mercy on his son, and he was in pain for his son, and he wished the best for his son. David HaMelech faced unbelievable challenges, and partly because, a king, part of the reason why he reached such incredible heights is because of what he learned through these experiences and the inner strength he had within him to overcome all these difficulties. And, he revealed the book of Psalms to him, to the world. To understand that's unbelievable. Tzemach Tzedek, as I've said in previous videos, says if someone understood the power of Psalms, they'd say it all day long. It says that when you recite Psalms to the Creator, to Hashem, the letters bow, they go up to heaven, and they prostrate themselves before the Creator. And David HaMelech is the one who compiled all this. So if a person's at all, experienced or versed a little bit in Tehillim, they'll recognize what kind of person we're dealing with David HaMelech, that he was able to write Tehillim. So there's many more things, unbelievable things we could also learn about David HaMelech in Brachos. It talks about his upbringing, his schedule. That how did David HaMelech? He knew the middle of the night, the exact middle point of the night. How? It's an unbelievable thing. It's like the blink of an eye. How did he know? Because every morning in the middle of the night, a wind would come and blow, and his instruments would start to play music. Hashem made him an alarm clock and would wake him up. Could you imagine every morning Hashem blowing a wind and playing an alarm clock out of an instrument to wake you up? It was like such a special attention from Hashem. And he would wake up and he would praise Hashem, and he would learn to study Torah, and then he would meet with the leaders of Israel and get to business, as they say, in terms of running the nation. So David HaMelech merited that his descendants, the kingdom will come from him. So of course, ultimately, the Moshiach will come from David HaMelech. We know Moshiach is the Moshiach ben David. The Moshiach will be Melech HaMashiach, the King Moshiach, and he will be the David HaMelech of the generation. He will reestablish the temple and reestablish. It's already established the Davidic dynasty, the Davidic kingdom, but he will bring it into revelation in terms of we will be able to see the kingdom. We'll have a Beis Hamikdash. We'll be able to visit the king himself. So of course, if the Mashiach will be the Mashiach ben David, then it's clear that he'll have a lot of qualities that will resemble that of David HaMelech. And David HaMelech, we know, he was extremely humble, and he was a shepherd. Who else do we know that is a shepherd? Moshe Rabbeinu and the Avos. So we see that there's a tremendous correlation between a shepherd and a leader of the Jewish people. And David HaMelech and Moshe were extremely humble, and it's noted. And they were shepherds, and they had mercy on the animals that they were taking care of. So of course, the Mashiach will be able to be merciful with the people. And what will make the Mashiach such a great leader is he will be an extremely empathetic leader. It says he will judge the nation with righteousness. He will always try to find the benefit of the doubt, try to always judge people in a positive way, and try to argue the case for them to Hashem. I mean, why will Mashiach be such a compatible candidate to serve as Mashiach, to be the Mashiach? Why? What makes him so compatible for this job and so so appreciated as being the king, because he will be so merciful with all the people, and he will always argue on their behalf and try to judge people in a positive way. And we know that Hashem is so demanding of us that we judge each other in a favorable way. What does that mean? That we have to always try to see the good in others and try to feel others' pain, and not to try to judge others, not to try to look down on others, but rather to feel empathy. And it says that when you, Rabbi Nachman actually says that when you judge a person favorably, you bring out the goodness within them. When you focus on a person's good qualities, Hashem goes, I'm going to bring out those good qualities. You focused on them, I'll bring it out even more. So we know the Moshiach will do that. And we know the Moshiach will be the Moshiach for the entire world, not just for the Jewish people, but for the entire world. All the whole world will know Hashem is one. We'll pray to Hashem. We'll recognize Hashem as king. And Mashiach will be the teacher who will bring the whole world to recognize Hashem's greatness. Because Hashem is the king of the kings, as they say. So, and this is connected to David HaMelech, because David HaMelech in Psalms, in Tehillim, as I've said in the previous videos, Psalm 117, he says, Hallelujah Hashem kol goyim shabechu kol ha'umim. David HaMelech says that the nations will praise Hashem. All the nations, all the Gentiles of the world will praise Hashem, will glorify Hashem's name. And who's going to be the king in that period to bring about this era where the whole nation, the whole world will praise Hashem? That's going to be Mashiach. So David HaMelech is prophesizing about the coming of Mashiach, who will bring the whole world, both Jew and Gentile, to recognize Hashem's greatness. And David HaMelech will be back in the times, because what marks the coming of Mashiach? What's the ultimate development of the coming of Mashiach, the days of Mashiach? Will bring it to the ultimate phase, be the resurrection of the dead. The resurrection of the dead, we will see. So we'll have David HaMelech and Mashiach. And we interestingly learn that from Geula to Mashiach, which is a book that we read every morning, which focuses on the days of Mashiach. It says that David HaMelech will serve as a king as well. He will be like the viceroy of the Mashiach. So maybe today that we experience that, we get to celebrate with our tremendous leaders, celebrating Hashem's revelation to the entire world, Hashem's glory being revealed to the world, the whole world recognizing Hashem. Because as you know, Hashem is the source of all of us. Every single detail in our lives is completely being controlled and directed by the Creator. And when Mashiach comes, the whole world will recognize this. In reality, it's already present right now. It's already here right now, this reality. We just have to recognize it. So in the coming Mashiach, maybe today, it will just become even more clear and more felt and more appreciated. So may it be today. God bless you all.